or lay. Yes, okay, so maybe let's start. So we are going to do a quick welcome, set our group expectations and our norms so we have a foundation on how we're going to be engaging with ourselves today. We do a quick look into an introduction of what human rights education is, do some discussions and the threats to our rights and democracy right now, have some small group strategy building, and then we can introduce ourselves and evaluate, and some parting words. Okay, so facilitators introduction. I'll begin off and then hand it over to Nina and Jake. My name is Sa Ajiman Bedu. I hold advanced degrees in human rights and public administration. I currently work at the Dodd Center at the Human Rights Institute at UConn. And for the past summer, I have been working as a Kirby Edmonds Fellow, working specifically on the TAAS series. Nina?
Thank you. And again, I'm Nina Simone Grach. I am the Director of Human Rights, that's got a typo, Human Rights Education at Woven Teaching. And later on, I will explain a little bit more about Woven Teaching. Thanks for having me.
And hi, everyone. As I said, I'm Jake Skripek. I'm a social studies teacher in Connecticut. I'm on the steering committee for HRUSA, where I've worked on strategy, policy, curriculum efforts over the past several years. I'm also the Connecticut regional rep for HRUSA, and I am adjunct faculty with CT State Community University, and I'm currently pursuing my EDD at the University of Connecticut as well. So really happy to be here with you all. I'm very excited for our morning session.
So thank you again, everyone, for joining us for this year's Training and Action series, or for those that know it to be TAAS. For some of you who may be new, TAAS is a national program of HRUSA and is designed to be a space where educators, students, and community advocates can come together and not just learn about human rights issues, but also practice and co-create strategies for action. Each year, we center the series on a theme that speaks to urgent realities of our moment. And for this year, our theme is defending democracy and human rights in a changing world. The reason why we chose this theme is because over the past year, we've seen how misinformation, polarization, shrinking civic spaces, the climate breakdown, AI and digital surveillance have all affected our ability to participate fully and freely in our democratic life. And at the same time, too, we've seen how communities, especially young people, are stepping up with courage and creativity to push for justice. So we wanted this year's task to be a reflection of the challenges and also a place where we can build some collective tools for change. So across the modules for this year, we'll see themes unfold in different ways. We will start by grounding ourselves, especially in this module, in human rights education as a civic tool. And then we would also talk about youth power and intergenerational identity and solidarity. We will unpack misinformation in our digital culture and how they shape how we believe things to be true. We would also look at polarization, climate justice, digital rights, intersectionalities, and finally, we will conclude with an action lab where participants can co-create strategies that they can move forward with in their community. So what can we expect here? We can expect to be challenged. We can expect to hear perspectives that might be different from our own. And we can also expect to leave not just with ideas, but some concrete strategies and connections to carry back into our classrooms, into our campuses, and our communities. So before we dive in today, I would like to take a few minutes to set up some communication agreements. These aren't meant to be strict rules, but shared practices that could help us create a space where everyone feels respected, heard, and safe. So first, we commit to listening actively and respectfully. That means that we are really trying to actively listen and hear each other out without planning our responses and taking some time to reflect on the things that we are hearing. We are also going to agree to step up and step back. So if you tend to speak often, consider giving others the space to also talk up. And if you're quiet, please know that your voice is welcome and needed in this space. We are also going to be respectful and we are going to respectfully disagree. It is okay to disagree, and it's actually necessary for our democracy also for disagreement and for discernment of thought. But to do that, we need to be able to do that in a respectful manner, in a way that brings different views into the conversation. So we will do so with care and avoid personal attacks and keep the focus on the ideas. We'll also try to keep confidentiality and care here. So we always try to say the stories stay, but then the lessons leave. And finally, we are trying to lean into the spirit of curiosity and learning. So we don't have to be perfect. This is a space to grow, to challenge ourselves, to challenge our assumptions, and also to support each other in the process. So, and also this agreement, they are living, so we can adjust them at any point. Our hope is that it becomes a shared foundation that everyone can feel comfortable enough to share and challenge. Can we get a thumbs up so we all have some buy-in? Okay, great, perfect.
Yes, you can do that.
I think this is me. So before we started, we just wanted to get sort of the temperature in the room. So you can either put this in the chat and then maybe we can just hear from a couple of folks. But on a scale from 1 to 10, how well acquainted are you with human rights education? And then the second question, how have you used human rights education in your practice, work, or personal life to date? And we will sort of be connecting that question a little bit later as well. But just to open it up, does anyone have a response for either how well acquainted you are or how are you using this practice in your work?
So,
Please.
grab the limelight. I've published papers on human rights and education, mostly on whether democracy is a part of the universal human rights, whether or not humanitarian intervention and the protection of human rights is an acceptable measure, things like that. And of course, I'm taking the Master of Arts at UA in Human Rights Practices, and in my doctorate, which deals with genocide, human rights was a big factor in research.
Thank you so much for sharing that really relevant experience. Somebody else want to chime in?
I might as well because I'll only be here so long. I'm Rosemary Blanchard and I'm retired, but and I'm even retired from my retirement because my retirement involved actually helping to establish HRE USA and the human rights education community in NCSS. And now I'm soon to be 79, so I'm running out of stamina for that sort of thing. But in the embrace of my Quaker faith, I have become very involved with the American Friends Service Committee, both in regard to a domestic program here in New Mexico and its international work, particularly in Gaza and the Middle East. And I've become involved in an advocacy team here in New Mexico that is grounded in the Friends Committee on National Legislation. So I'm often dealing with, it would be so nice to be dealing with actual Congress people, but no, we deal with their staff. And human rights, a background in human rights is really important for trying to actually, I see it as departisanizing these issues. It's not a question of the left says you should do this or the right says we've got our personal independence, but this is this is an agreed upon standard of how humans treat humans. And sometimes it can be heard. Not always, but sometimes.
Thank you so much. And thank you for all the work you're doing and have done. And thanks to those of you who put some of the info in the chat. So I'm going to turn it over to Jake to start talking about HRE content and pedagogy.
Thanks, Nina, and really appreciate everyone's thoughts in the chat. I want to give just folks a very, very brief and pretty quick overview of kind of human rights education principles and ideas. Again, HRUSA, we have a ton of resources that can help you kind of take a deeper dive. We're not going to be able to really dive fully deep into this like a course today, but want to just give you kind of the broad strokes of human rights education. So, as kind of Rosemary just spoke about, the human rights, the rights that every human uh, being should have, and they're essential for living life to the fullest. We kind of have these three undergirded principles, equal and universal. When I'm talking to my students at the high school level about what are human rights and what are not human rights, I always come back to this point of universality, right? That again, no matter your ideology, no matter your racial identity, no matter your gender, whatever you are coming to the table with, it doesn't matter. You are covered. You are protected and should be protected when it comes to your basic rights. And so, for a lot of folks, whether it's high school students, college students, adults, that universality idea is hard to grapple with. And we're having conversations now worldwide where some people don't really believe in that universality. I think it's our work to really think about how do we protect that universality as much as possible. And then we have these other principles, right? Inalienable and then interdependent. I always think about interdependent as, again, mutually benefiting one another, right? Not one group has rights over the other. It's really about building a more connectivity and intersectional world. So there's other principles that are out there, but I think we lean into these three as being kind of the strong ones. When we talk about human rights education, it's really a lifelong process of teaching and learning that helps individuals, communities, groups really kind of develop core capacities to build dignity and build respect in their respective spaces. So this practice is about knowledge, skills, and values to uplift our basic human rights. It's really about fulfilling these international principles on how we recognize our human rights on a global scale. And it's really getting after things like justice and peace, um, again, on a national, statewide, and local level as well. I think when we talk about this, a lot of times when we think, oh, we need justice, we need peace, we think about these broad areas of halfway around the world, there's an issue going on. Again, I always draw it back to, okay, that might be happening, but what's happening in your local community? How can you look a little bit closer at what's happening more close to home? And is that more within your power to do good work? And again, that's any conversation you have with anyone, it's really about how do you make it relevant and real for them. So when we talk about human rights education, it is thinking how you make it as practical as possible. Some of the kind of the core framework that you can think about for human rights education, some of you might know this already, is the about, through, and for framework. I always think about this as when we talk about education about human rights, it's about gaining that knowledge, that core understanding of those principles, those norms, those values that are really enshrined. Sometimes I say to students, this is kind of the content of human rights, right? What are the issues? What are we really looking at in terms of the substance of the of our rights in general? Then we move to through, which is about learning. hold on one second, my cursor's a little bit. Learning in a way that respects the rights of both educators and learners, right? So, what are those learning mechanisms and strategies that you're doing in the classroom or in non-formal spaces that really help promote human rights? So are you building in dialogue? Are you building in small group work? Are you, really trying to bring a sense of community to your space? That's really about kind of uplifting the through. And then the four, empowering and really trying to give a sense for folks on the long-term value of promoting human rights. So I always frame that for my students as, again, this is a long-term empowerment. How do we uplift and really see a better vision for our futures? Again, there's a lot of literature around about through four, but that's kind of the basic gist of it.
Hmm.
Again, I mentioned a lot of this, right? Promoting values, beliefs, and attitudes to really help people uplift their own rights, really making sure that people have the mechanisms and tools to see and identify and then prevent human rights abuses or violations, even in their small communities. And it's a kind of a lifelong endeavor, right, to kind of uplift the human condition. I put this up here just to give folks kind of a broad understanding. There are a number of treaties and agreements and ratified agreements between a range of different countries around very clear focuses on protecting human rights. So there's a convention on the rights of the child, which really focuses on how do we protect these very core rights for folks under, roughly under 18. We have other prevention mechanisms out there that, in essence, countries come to the table are supposed to agree to. And if they agree to it, they are really bound by those international protocols. The goal is, again, I say the goal is to really craft your own laws and policies on a state and local and really national level around some of these frameworks. We know it does not always happen. We can look down this list and say that certain countries definitely violate these treaties and conventions in a range of ways. But these are again kind of the envisioning of what we hope for a more dignified and peaceful world. And then I'll just mention as well, human rights education, I think, has a lot of intersections into other areas of education. So when we're talking about citizenship education, peace education, social justice education, and there's a number of others, I think that even though those fields have their own distinct literature and methodology and bodies of work, there are intersections. There are ways in which we can say, how can we mutually benefit one another and really, again, all build towards a more just and peaceful world. So again, sometimes I think folks might blur the lines a little bit between these. There's definitely some distinct aspects to each of these forms of education. But I also think it's good to kind of see where are those intersections and how can we, tap into those. So, really just a quick question, and I'd love to hear from maybe two folks before we kind of switch gears here. Um, Really, these two questions, how might you utilize human rights education in your own practice or your own personal life, or how are you currently using it? And then any barriers that either you've come across or might come across in terms of implementing human rights education into your work. So feel free, maybe we can have two folks unmute and just share any thoughts you have of how this is relevant to your work and any challenges or barriers that you may have faced or potentially will face.
I can contribute. This is Maura. Sorry, I haven't been off mute yet today.
Sure.
My practice, I'm a trained child life specialist, and a lot of my work was based off child development and advocating for the hospitalized child. But obviously, at the core, it's advocating and empowering children and their families. And my next step in my career, a goal that I have is to write a children's book to sort of apply, obviously, lots of these ideas because I feel like books are the greatest way to reach children and give them, the basic foundation and understanding. And so utilizing stories to help children know from the beginning how to respect others, other cultures, others in a variety of ways. And I'm really excited about that because I feel like that's super successful way to reach children. My challenge, which is sort of um, just unique to not knowing that world of the literary world. So just sort of trying to learn more about that and expose myself to areas where I can learn the process of actually being able to execute this goal, but knowing that this is something that can be really helpful is something that keeps me going. So
Thank you so much. I appreciate you saying, how can we make this as relevant as possible? So if you're speaking for or thinking about how do we bring this to young people, using children's literature to bring it down and really make it relevant and real and connected to young kids. I think that is a great methodology to kind of think about. And then you also spoke about that this is an ongoing process, right? This is a cycle of ongoing learning, and we are not always experts. We strive to be, but that cycle of learning will have successes and challenges, and it's a worthwhile endeavor to do so. So thank you very, very much. Um, is it Myo? I think you had your hand up as well.
Yes, yes, thank you. Yes, I'm the Juero. The one is I'm the practicing about the human rights lawyer in Myanmar, but particularly the juvenile justice in the areas of juvenile justice. There's a lot of like the human rights violations when the police violate the children human rights, particularly. So actually it is in the code, even though in the code there's a violating about the child right justice, something like that. That is why, as possible as I can, I provide the information about okay, this is the UNCRC, the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. It is because in the Article 37, it is mentioned about it, okay, how to treat the children, something like that. That is one of the practice. Actually, in the day-to-day practicing the about related to the human rights issue, but they're not practicing. They are not upholding about the children human rights. The other one is this is the challenges. That is why I'm the just now the in the social work course I'm providing about the human rights education. It is very important for the social worker because it is a very important for them. That's why I'm promoting about the human rights, particularly about all the women rights, children rights, disability, person with disability rights, something like that. It's a very important for the social worker to promote and also to advocate for them to the governments to have to change the policy to enact about the law, something like this. But actually, it's not easy. There's so many challenges to make it advocate to the government. That is what I'm thinking. Thank you very much. Yeah, just sharing.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I definitely heard you speak about utilizing these frameworks, these treaties, these international agreements with purpose, right? And yes, they might be written down and might be stated somewhere, but how do we use them in a very practical and relevant way, particularly when you're speaking about the law itself? And I also heard you say really finding a sense of human rights education, how it can intersect with either other areas of work or other disciplines. And again, it goes back to that idea of how do we build more intersectionality within our work and the work of others. So yeah, I really, really appreciate those points. I think that is how we further this field and how we further, again, build a sense of dignity and respect for all. Um, Thank you. This was really, really wonderful to kind of get your heads thinking about HRE. And then I believe I'm going to pass it back over to Nina.
Great, thank you. This is the really cheery and uplifting piece of our work today. Um, so, we want to talk about what are some of the threats to the right to education, which we know is a human right that we all have. Um, and how does democracy fit into this? And I want to say up front that, you know, most of us are based in the United States. I'm certainly in the United States right now, and that is my lens. However, these issues, we are seeing these threats to democracy, which are also threats against human rights in so many places in the world. And I think it's a good reminder, at least for me, that, this idea that the United States is somehow different and we will never have challenges to our democracy. I think we are really seeing that being challenged right now. Um, and that American exceptionalism we are not so exceptional. Um, anyway, in looking at what are some of these issues specifically related to education, I'm sure we can even come up with a longer list, but things like intrusion of religion into public education, where states want to mandate that the Ten Commandments be posted in a classroom. And of course, intrusion of religion typically is one religion. And certainly the rise of Christian nationalism is something that is very troubling, to say the least. Certainly attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I would say the misunderstanding of what that means. The rewriting of history and the denial of basic facts and truths, as we're seeing with museums that are, having whole exhibits taken down, having things rewritten that are, according to the current administration, that are sort of anti-American. However, those of us who have taught history, my background is in genocide education, we know how dangerous that is, to deny basic facts and truths. And as Saw mentioned, the spread of mis and disinformation, the denigration of the press and the media. And again, some of these are sort of more directly related to education, but certainly, this control of freedom of expression, and again, sort of attacks on truth and history, which goes into limits on speech and expression. We are really seeing this on college campuses. Jake and I were chatting online earlier about UC Berkeley, which I'm 20 minutes away from, which apparently just turned over a list of 160 students and faculty who are engaging in free speech, engaging in what the administration is saying and what UC Berkeley is saying are anti-Semitic actions. And the faculty and the students whose names are being contacted and told that their information is being passed on to the government. However, they are not seeing their own files or even what these cases are. Scapegoating of historically marginalized peoples. I mean, particularly immigrants right now. The trans community, I think we're seeing this everywhere. And obviously has such an impact on our students. Threats and violence against immigrant communities. I know certainly in San Francisco, there are so many meetings and messages about ICE raids in schools, ICE raids near schools. And certainly this is meant to really terrorize immigrant communities. And then the last one, certainly the last couple of days, sadly, are more proof of increasingly heated political climate of anger, insults, and bullying. And again, as someone who studied genocide and sort of looking at the pyramid of hate, which talks about the escalation of hate, we see that when things are not challenged or confronted, violence and hate becomes more and more extreme. So things like insults or slurs, turn into actual violence and action. Yeah, so very, very scary. I'm just wondering, I'm sure you are seeing this in your communities and in your work. And if you could drop some of those into the chat, it's just so we're all sort of understanding where we are in this and what the real life applications of all of this are. And then we're going to move into how do we address this? How do we talk to young people about it? So this is the forward to the curriculum I'm going to be talking about, but this is from an academic and sort of cultural critic. To be truly radical is to make hope possible rather than despair convincing. And I think when you look at the list I just went through, it is hard not to feel hopeless, filled with despair, and also that how in the world am I as one person going to sort of challenge this? Um, that is really a tactic of fascist and authoritarian governments, is to try and make people feel hopeless, to overwhelm them with propaganda, misinformation. So I think, getting young people and our students to see that they can make change, and not to despair and give up. Um, and for me, that is something that really keeps me going, is that this is what, I hate to use that, this is what authoritarians want, is for us to give up, and to stop challenging these, attacks on our rights. So I think this is a really important quote. And if you could go, thank you. So Women Teaching decided, sort of around the time pre-election, again, how do we talk about these threats on democracy, both in the United States, but also internationally, and how are they connected? How is what's happening in Hungary or what's happening in the Philippines, how does that connect with what's happening here in the US? So we took on tyranny, which is, Timothy Snyder was a professor at Yale until very recently. He just moved to Canada, which is not very encouraging, I have to say, as a personal aside. But somebody who was really an expert on Nazi Germany and Soviet Russia, or Soviet Union, excuse me. And so on tyranny, I hate this. It's this book that you see the title of on the screen. It's a very small book, and there are 20 lessons. Um, and so we took those, and all of our work is really, again, about fighting despair. It's really focused on action. What are small actions people can take? What are day-to-day things that, the average person or young person can take on? So we created Defending Democracy, which is this really large curriculum. I don't know why I'm holding things up. Anyway, you can both download this for free. We also have like a Google slideshow that goes with it. You can download. Also on our website, you can order hard copies of it. So you'll have my information. Also, we have translated this into French because we have many partners in French-speaking Africa that are using this, which is really interesting. And we are currently about to publish this in Spanish as well. But again, these are really taking examples of how we can protect democracy, and then looking at case studies from around the globe, and then again, really hoping to inspire and help young people understand the actions that they can take individually or collectively. And if you could go to the next slide. Thank you. And some of you may know, this book has been around. This was actually, On Tyranny was written as a response to the 2016 election. So, these are some of the steps. There are obviously 20. We wrote about 12 of them. We wrote lessons about, but just these are examples. Be kind to our language. So again, words matter. Be very specific in your language, and read books. Try to separate yourself from the internet. That is something I try to remind myself every day as I go down the rabbit hole of reading the news. The second one, believe in truth. To abandon facts is to abandon freedom. I think that is so important. And then if you look at the last sentence in this bullet point, again, taken from Snyder, the biggest wallet pays for the most blinding lights. That's hard to deny that is not happening here in the US. Investigate. Don't forward articles without reading them. Don't just look at clickbait headlines. and also support journalism. We've seen so many attacks on major news outlets, CBS, the New York Times, the AP, which is now banned from attending, I think, press conferences at the White House, attacks on NPR and PBS, unfortunately. And then the last one, learn from peers in other countries. And I think, as Jake was saying, so much about human rights education is about our interdependence. And so again, how have other people handled these issues, these threats on democracy? Again, the United States is not unique in this respect. So trying to understand both historical trends and, looking at global trends, and again, how the United States may fit into this, or how your students may, these issues may be impacting them. And so we took these 20 lessons from Snyder, and then you can go to the next slide, and we created this resource. So some of the introductory pieces are really about democracy and authoritarianism, defining what that is, what that isn't. So those are the introductory lessons, and then we have 12 lessons based on Snyder. And this is a human rights-based framework to examine local, national, and global issues. With all of our materials, we have additional resources. And then, as I keep stressing, the last one is really practical suggestions. How do young people take responsibility, and understanding that fighting for democracy is so connected to human rights. They are one and the same. And I think that may be the last slide I have on defending democracy. Yes, thank you. And if you have questions about this, again, if you wanted to order it, my email address will be shared. So I hope you will be in touch. And I know HRE USA has also shared this resource. And we will be at NCSS, National Council for the Social Studies, in DC in early December, presenting about this as well. Certainly an extremely timely resource, we think. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Nina.
Thank you.
So I think what we wanted to do is we are going to break off in a few minutes to start to think about with you all in smaller groups, what are some meaningful strategies that either we're doing in our own work or we can kind of think about how we can cultivate as a community of practice. What we did want to take a few minutes to do is the three of us as facilitators just sharing a resilience strategy, a strategy we're kind of implementing in our own work that really we feel is something we are trying to get after, knowing the stakes that Nina just kind of laid out for us. So I'll turn it back over to Nina just for a second. A strategy that you're kind of utilizing in your own personal work, Nina?
Thank you. I've really been trying to think about this. I'm going to share something really sort of a personal strategy. As I said, my background is in genocide education, and my mother was a Holocaust survivor from Poland, and she lost her whole family. She was orphaned by the age of 3. She lived in hiding for many years, hidden by her Catholic nanny. She eventually ended up with her nanny moving to Sweden and then to Cuba before she could enter the United States. And she was reunited with family that had immigrated to the United States well before the war. But my mother was, even with this horrible history, was truly one of the most positive people, and really believed in the good of other people, the intelligence in other people, and had this amazing both trust and optimism that it was always remarkable to me, considering the background she had come from. And so I try to remember that. And certainly, there are so many stories of others currently who have been through so many challenges and, life-threatening challenges, and yet still really want to connect with other people, want to believe in, the power of community. And so that is something I try to keep in mind when I, read the news and get a little hopeless. Is that you have to remain hopeful. You have to believe in people. Thank you. That's my strategy.
Thanks, Nina. Really appreciate that. Sa, why don't we go to you? What's a strategy that you're utilizing in your own work?
Yeah, so one of the strategies that I have been using in my work is, I would say, dialogue. We are living in a world where people are either don't want to talk or they don't yet have the skills to be able to speak across different. And that gap fuels a lot of the polarization, the division, and even the dehumanization that we see in our societies today. So the that I am hoping to contribute is to create intentional spaces where people can be able to learn and practice dialogue as a human rights tool, not just to share perspectives, but also to listen deeply, to challenge harmful narratives, and also to stand up together for equity and inclusion. So dialogue as a tool that I'm using is not just a talk, but then as an active strategy for standing up against injustices and also rebuilding trust and community.
Thank you, Sa. Really appreciate that. Um, I'll share my strategy. So I mentioned at the top that I'm a teacher, I'm in K to 12 education. That's kind of my realm of thinking. And I would say that my town that I live in and my school district are pretty human rights friendly, right? There's some really good protections that we have on a local level, kind of unique for a particular space. And um, I'm always thinking about that, but also the lived reality of folks who are on the ground here in Manchester, Connecticut. And I'll just mention that even the other day that we were supposed to have on Monday a Hispanic Heritage celebration at our town hall. And we got wind through the school district that there might be an ice raid at that Hispanic Heritage celebration, which is supposed to be a joyous event with young people speaking and community members speaking. And so, um, you know, we have that looming threat. There are teachers going down there, the superintendent's going to be down there. We're all going to kind of make sure that there is a sense of protection and defense. And so I'm always kind of grappling in those two spaces, right? I think my strategy that I've been trying to think about and put, some action behind is this idea of strategic non-cooperation, which I've been listening and really diving into a lot of the work of Indivisible, if you know the group, which is kind of a
Mhm.
um, really it's an advocacy group, but they're doing some really good work across all 50 states to really energize and engage folks in standing up for democracy. And this idea of strategic non-cooperation is all about looking at a threat and saying, hell be damned, we're going to continue to do good work, and we're going to get like-minded people together to really think about how do we build a coalition of action. Um, I'm starting to do that. One of the things I'm starting to do is get a few folks together at my house. We're going to be doing kind of a house party where we're just sitting in my backyard and really speaking about whether it's education, whether it's on a district or town level. How do we build resilience? How do we build strategies for hope? And recognize that we don't always, as Nina put it for Timothy Snyder, we don't always have to obey in advance, right? We don't always have to just say, well, this is what it is. We have to go along with it. We can find areas where we can say, no, we are going to stand up for what we believe is just. So that's what I'm kind of thinking about. I'm trying to have some folks over. Maybe we'll grow those house parties a little bit. That's kind of an implemental strategy I'm considering. So um, thank you. So we want to give some time for you all to kind of dialogue with one another. I'm going to send everyone out in a breakout room in about a minute, and we'd like you to think about these kind of broad questions. Any human rights action strategies you have utilized in your own work, What ideas, inspiration, creativity have been percolating around some of these ideas we've been talking about, or even that you're coming in with today? What are some of those ideas for resilience, for hope making that may have been kind of percolating in the back of your brain? We'd love to hear you around that. And then, as we just kind of shared, where have you personally found a sense of hope and resilience, right? And this could be in your professional life, your personal life, you name it. We're really just trying to hear from y'all on kind of where you are and what you're looking towards. Um, so what we're gonna do is Nina, Sa, and myself, we're gonna be in breakout rooms with you. We have a doc that we might take just a couple notes from what our groups are sharing. This is only for us internally. We're not sharing this widely. We just want to kind of capture your thoughts. And we're gonna do maybe about I think 12, that's like 12, 13 minutes or so. I think that would be a good realm to kind of discuss. I'll set my timer and call everyone back after those 12 to 13 minutes, and then we'll do some quick share out and a couple other things. All right, perfect. So I'm going to send everyone out to breakout rooms. Give me 1 minute here.
Nice job, Jake.
Thanks, Yvonne.
Jess, it's nice to sort of meet you. I went to the center years ago. I was working with Echoes and Reflections, doing Holocaust education, and did a workshop there, and was so moved by the center and the Anne Frank Memorial. So it's really nice to meet you.
Well, it's so nice to meet you too.
All right, I think folks are coming back in. I'm gonna turn it over to just Sa and Nina and then myself. Just maybe we could do a couple, 1 to 2 highlights you heard from your conversation, just to kind of bring it all back together for the full group. So, why don't I turn to Nina, then we'll go Sa, and then I'll go last.
Thank you. We had an intimate conversation. And yeah, I mean, I think there were a lot of themes of folks wanting to connect and feeling that both with themselves or their children or with their students, that, bringing them to meet other people or to volunteer or to see how many people in the community also share, your concern, your commitment to these issues, and just how powerful that is. I think that was something that came through very strongly. And at the end, we were sort of talking about using literature. And I was saying, which many of you are probably familiar with, this idea of being both a mirror and a window. So to read a story about someone else and to see yourself reflected in some way, and then also to have this window onto perhaps a whole different culture, time, country, and again, just making these connections, and how interdependent we are. So I think those were kind of some of the things we touched upon.
Thanks, Nina. Sa?
Yes. So we had a wonderful conversation, and my group, thanks to Noreen, Gloria, and Christy for the spirited conversation that we had. They got to share some of the ways that they are contributing in their community, some of the strategies that they're using. We got to hear how Noreen is sharing strategically ways that she can honor and celebrate other cultures in her classroom, and how she also utilizes dialogue. We also got to hear the amazing work that Gloria is doing in her community and focusing, bringing all of the community work and churches together to create some sort of an alliance that supports immigrants in this year. She's also been doing some fundraising efforts. So we really appreciate Gloria for all of the work that she's doing. And Christy also shared how she's also creating spaces for intergenerational conversations and people to come together to share And at the end, we kind of thought it would be really great for us to create a hope chest where we can have like some strategies that people are using. It could potentially encourage people to go on with the work that they're doing.
I love that. Let's make that happen. That's fantastic. That's very exciting. Yeah, I mean, I think our group said very similar things. We're really trying to reflect on our own sense of resilience and hope in our own work. I know we brought up, how do we use language intentionally, and with purpose in our own respective work? How much do we put out there that yes, we are doing human rights education, versus how much do we continue to do human rights education, but use other words or other language to not necessarily mask it, but make it, keep it with fidelity, but also make it palatable. And so that's kind of a struggle. I think about that as the proverbial tug of war, right? How much do you lean in versus how much do you kind of step back? We spent a lot of time thinking about language as a form of resilience. I know Jess mentioned some core action steps and kind of framework that she is using in her work through her center, on how do we do human rights education, but also make it relevant and real and digestible, particularly again if you're a young kid or you're a teenager or even a adult. So those types of strategies that are hard to get after, that take time to work after, we were kind of grappling with in our small group. So this is wonderful. This is really, really exciting. I will just say, this type of community, this type of breakout room that we just did, we're trying to do through each of our TAAS series. We don't want to just talk at y'all as audience members. We really want to get folks together. And yeah, we had those questions, but a lot of what we're doing is trying to just build a sense of community, right? I think more community we need, the better these days, and bridging kind of all folks from all walks of life to build a broader movement towards HRE. It's a really, really exciting time, and I think these conversations we're going to keep coming back to over and over again as we go through TAAS. And we encourage you to do the same in your own work. For our last chunk here, I did want to turn over to Nina for a few minutes, and then I'll share a couple things as well, and then Sal will wrap us up. We did want to share a little bit about what Woven Teaching does and what HRUSA does. You might already know some of this stuff, but we just want to give everyone a quick overview of these organizations, how they could be of service to you, and how we can build a sense of connectivity and community. So, Nina, feel free. I'm going to share my screen.
Thank you.
Switch it over. And give me a second here. Boom, boom, boom.
Cliffhanger. What is Woven Teaching?
Excellent. All right, there you go.
Thank you. Wonderful. So we are a small, so Woven Foundation is sort of the overarching piece, and it's unusual that we provide funding to partners around the world doing human rights work and human rights education. And we also have a programmatic arm, which is Woven Teaching. And so we work, with traditional and non-traditional settings to teach about human rights and to support learners in becoming part of an engaged, active global citizenry, advocating for and protecting universal human rights. And, I should say we were started by a high school social studies teacher, who was finding her students a little disconnected from some of the history she was teaching. And she found out about human rights education and began sort of utilizing this in her classroom and found it to be a really powerful way to do this. And so she started this organization. And so all of our resources are free. We have webinars, we have lots of resources and materials to download. And I will just talk about a couple of those, and then I hope you will look at our website. So again, we have these lessons, we have a timeline of human rights history, we have online and in-person workshops. It's all based in human rights education. And we really try to focus on both historical and contemporary, and the US and abroad. So that is sort of our focus. We sort of have three pillars, we call them. So defending democracy, again, the piece I was talking about. Um, and then on the left, human rights are for everyone, which is a guide about really about teaching the 30 articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, or the UDHR. This was actually started by an organization we work with, excuse me, in Rwanda, who they were doing peer leadership work and really felt like they wanted to talk about human rights and to show young people what their rights were. And so they started this, and then we worked with them to create this guide. And it's been used in a lot of our, again, with our partners in East Africa, also in the United States, in both classrooms and sort of extracurricular clubs. So I encourage you to look at that. That is also in French and in Spanish. And then on the right, we have a resource, Stages of Genocide, which really looks at the patterns of genocide. So using Professor Gregory Stanton, some of you may be familiar with his 10 stages of genocide. So looking at different case studies and, understanding, again, sort of the patterns here. Also, importantly, looking at where in the escalation of hate policy could people have intervened? Where could we turn things around? What opportunities were, either missed, ignored, not taken? So again, those are the three pillars of our work, but we have resources on many other things. And I think there's one more slide, maybe. And yes, this is a wonderful poster that my colleague created. And again, it is free. We hope you will order them, which is the 30 rights. And it's wonderful to walk into a classroom and see these. Oh, wonderful. That's nice to hear. Thank you, Jess. So again, we will give you my contact information at the end, but I hope you will check out Woven Teaching and contact me. And I'm so pleased always, like I said, to work with HRE USA and with TAAS. So that's my little speech. Thank you.
Thanks, Nina. I have one or two of the UDHR posters in my room, but I'm definitely going to get this one as well because this is fantastic. Really, really love that. Thank you very much. Just want to give a brief overview of HR USA, kind of what we do as an organization, and others feel free to weigh in if you have ideas here. But we're really a organization. It's a collaborative network, really advocating, innovating, and organizing for human rights education, particularly in the United States. These are some of our mission principles, right? So integrating human rights standards into our work, advocating for the inclusion of HRE into curricula, standards, pedagogy, developing resources, developing trainings like the one you're on right now for practicing educators or other stakeholders, empowering learners and educators, developing global research, and really trying to bridge and build a broader network of best practices. So it's really, really exciting to be part of it. These are some of our kind of organizational priorities. If you notice, I won't go through them in detail, but we're really trying to aim towards these big, ambitious goals as an organization, and really kind of ground our committee work, our teamwork in each of these priorities. So youth leadership, policy and practice, fundraising a little bit, innovation, ongoing learning, which we're part of right now. All of these kind of tie together and really kind of foster our work as an organization. We have a number of teams that are currently operating. We have essentially 9 action teams where steering committee members, our regional representatives, which I'll talk about in a second, members at large, or folks who just want to get involved and have their teeth on something, can get involved and be part of kind of these subsets of really important work. And again, each of these teams really align with some of those priorities that I just talked about. We have a regional rep network. These are folks who are in all parts of the country, really as a conduit to the national network, and really act as a representative for their home community Some folks have chapter meetings, some folks really try to bring in other groups and stakeholders. There's a variety of work that's happening in a variety of spaces, but it's really if I'm a regional rep, I act as a conduit between the national network and the local community. If you know of folks or you yourself are interested in getting involved with this network, please let us know. We can definitely point you in the right direction and really have that conversation of how to get involved. As Sa had mentioned, Sa has been one of our summer fellows, our Kirby Edmonds summer fellows. This is a fellowship we have developed over the last couple years, really honoring the work of Kirby Edmonds, who was a longtime member and leader in Atria USA. He had passed a few years ago, and we really have put forward this ambitious fellowship program really focused on a number of our areas of priorities and ongoing work. So Sa helped develop this summer our TAAS series, and we had a number of other interns and fellows working to develop our work. Number of ways in which you can engage with us. We have our e-newsletter. We have our blog and social media posts on a variety of social media platforms. We have our podcast. We have a thriving podcast, Human Rights Education Now, with a variety of interviews and expert advice on how do we foster human rights education in these current times. If you get a chance to look at it, we can drop the link in the chat. Really, really fascinating, growing podcast that we're hoping to ever grow over the next series of years. We have policy briefs, we have toolkits. Our annual reports are really fascinating to look at just to see how our work has evolved. So there's some stuff out there that you can get your hands on if you're interested in learning a little bit more. I mentioned the podcast. We can definitely put that in the chat as we conclude today, but definitely check that out. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. We have some other projects that we've done over the years, some partnerships we developed with Amnesty International, our work with the CRC and the Children's Rights Friendly Cities organization and initiative. And we do a number of other partnerships with a range of organizations. We have our shop. So as Nina said, it's always great to get some swag, always great to get some, stuff you can put in your classroom or in your workspace. Very similar, we have posters for the UDHR. We have the UDHR booklets. So definitely check that out. And then last but not least, we'll just talk about we have partnerships with a couple key organizations. So we have a direct partnership with the National Council for the Social Studies. Shameless plug, I happen to co-chair the Human Rights Ed community at NCSS, and we have our conference coming up in December. We can definitely send some information out about that. We have our Right to Learn Coalition that we're a part of, really focused on how do we keep the right to education alive and well. And again, we partner with UCC, HRE, University and College Consortium for Human Rights Education, a couple other international organizations, and we are part of the National Human Rights Institution for the United States, this large initiative to get a national institution for human rights as a U.S. institution. A lot of other countries have one of those, but the United States does not, and so there's a growing movement to put that forward. I said in our newsletter, please follow us. We're around in a variety of different social media platforms. And then I'll just mention that our next TAAS series is coming up Monday, September 29th at 7 p.m. We're really going to be speaking about and focusing on youth civic power. And we have a couple featured panelists that are doing that work that we would love to kind of share their work with you. So if you're interested, please sign up. I think Sa will put the registration link or the flyer in the chat for y'all. If you want to sign up for that session, really exciting to hear and listen to young people doing this good work. And we'll put our information up here as well. Again, these are our emails. Sa can definitely put hers as well because I think we don't have it on here. We'll put that in the chat for everyone just to kind of take with you. Again, we're really happy that you have attended today. And I'll turn it back over to Sa to kind of wrap us up.
Okay. So we also want to get your feedback on how this session was for you, your experience of it, and how we can potentially get some feedback and refine the other sessions or our approach for the other sessions. So I have added the link in the chat, so you can click on that, or you can use your phone to scan and fill out this very, very short survey. Okay, any words, anyone wants to share anything? I know we're way past time, a minute past time, but we want to give the opportunity to any person that maybe has a word of encouragement for us to share with us today.
This was a great session, and the participants and the presenters all was just very helpful and high quality.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And also, as a final, you'll be getting an email from us sharing with you some of the resources that we have shared today, the ones that Nina also mentioned. We are going to be collating all of them onto a centralized place where you can make reference to it and to all of the other sessions too moving forward. Okay, so thank you all very much for spending your early Saturday with us and having this conversation. We're really looking forward to having you next session that is going to be on the 29th. Please do well to register. You've gotten emails from Christy sharing those details. We can share them again with you, but it was really great having you here with us today. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks.
Thank you. And Fa and Jake, it looks like the evaluation needs to be published, the Google form. I know I've had challenges with that in the past, just so we make sure that we capture everyone's evaluation.
Right.
Jake,
Yes,
can you
it should.
stop the recording? You think you have control? Thanks.
I think it's